you have an interest in horses and love learning more about horses, the horse industry, teaching, or even managing your own horse business, then you're in the right place. We would love you to join us on our mission, which is to improve the lives of horses around the world through the education of riders, handlers, and trainers. So get comfortable, listen in, and enjoy.
This is another of our popular Listener's Choice interviews, which we're playing over the weekend. We've chosen the most popular interviews for you to select the Listener's Choice winner. If you're not sure how the Listener's Choice competition works, have a look at horsechats.com/choice for the rules and the leaderboard. Today's chat's been brought to you by International Horse College. International Horse College's motto is people safety and horse welfare, and you'll find this message throughout our chats. Registered Training Organisation number 31352. Our guest today is Alecia Evans. Now, Alicia's got a unique combination of being a professional animal communicator. She's an energy practitioner, bodywork and soul relationship coach, and she's going to talk to us today about relationships between horses and people. How are you today, Alecia?
I'm great.
Good.
I'm enjoying a kind of cold Colorado day.
Yeah.
Waiting for the snow to come in.
Are you? Do you ski?
Yeah, I do.
You do?
I do.
Yeah.
I love cross country and I love downhill.
Okay. And then, so that's your winter sport. Yeah. Does your business slow down in the winter or not?
Not really.
Mm-hmm. I suppose people still need to be communicating anyway.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And horses are always coming up with different things all times of the year.
Yes, I suppose. Yep. Okay, now, Alecia, we normally start off with a favourite quote. What's your favourite quote? And also tell us how it's inspired you or, influenced you with horses.
Okay, so my favourite quote is actually my own quote. Not to be a narcissist, but it's, if you want to know what's going on with your horse, ask your horse.
Okay.
That's Alecia. Because so many times, people I read on online chats and I hear friends of mine who have horses and they're like, well, the vet said this and the vet said that. And I'm all about going to the vet. But what I have learned over, 24 years communicating with horses and many, many other animals is that they really do know what's actually happening with themselves. So when you work with an animal communicator, they can really share with you very precisely exactly what your horse is experiencing. So I always say, if we want to know, ask the horse. And what inspired me, from the time I was little, I remember being a little girl at about 3 or 4 years old in the Bronx of all places, right? Because there's not a lot of nature there. And we went on some pony rides and I just remember the smell. The smell of the horses, the smell of the hay. I just wanted to be around horses. And even though I grew up in a 2-bedroom apartment, I said, Mom, I'll keep the horse under the bed. I swear, I'll keep it clean. And then when I was about 5 or 6, we actually went out to a stable and just the sound of the horse's hooves as I heard them beating on the ground, it lit my whole body on fire. It was just like someday, I'm not sure how.
Yep. Yep. You're going to do something. Yeah. Thinking about the whole healing,
mm-hmm.
and you talk about a body, mind, soul relationship. Tell us how that all started. How you got started with all of that? How did that all come together?
Well, it started kind of unconsciously. When I was about 11 or 12, my dad ran a resort in Pennsylvania, and they had a stable.
Yep.
So I remember going up to the stable one early, snowy morning, and no one was there. And I was sitting next to a horse named Patty. And Patty was a paint mare. She had one blue eye and one brown eye. And I just sat very quietly. And I was not a kid that was really prone to being quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Meditation was not something like I was always moving or was talking.
Yep.
But I remember this moment when I was just sitting there with her, and all of a sudden everything got really, really, really silent. And I could hear the wind kind of rustling through the trees. And I could feel Patty. It was more than just like looking at her. Like I could feel something. And I knew she didn't feel well. And I just remember thinking to myself, there's something more here. Like I know that there's something more here. I don't even know what it is yet, but I know that there's a deeper connection, and I want to be able to hear horses, and I want to be able to help them. And from that awareness, through my life, I was a fitness trainer, and then I became a Qigong practitioner. And through my Qigong practice, I would go and spend time at a local barn, and I would practice my Qigong in the middle of the arena with some of the horses. And I was so fascinated by, I understand that there's a physical relationship. I understand that there's a mental connection. But then I also started feeling that the energy that was getting created through my practice, and then the curiosity of the horses, and just understanding on an essence level, oh my gosh, these beings understand way more than we give them credit for.
Just tell us, for those who don't understand, what's Qigong? If you're going to explain just in a sentence or two about Qigong.
Absolutely. So if you've heard of Tai Chi, which is an ancient Chinese self-healing modality,
yes,
Qigong is actually the grandfather of Tai Chi. So Qigong has been around for thousands and thousands of years as an internal self-healing practice to help you rebalance your internal energy. So your physical health increases. You are connected in your body, your mind, and your spirit.
Okay, so you were doing your Qigong at the stables. Yes, sorry, continue. I just want to put that in just in case people didn't understand. Yep, and then go from there.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, so it just, what started to happen, because my Qigong practice was an hour, every day, every morning, every night for about 3 years, all of a sudden things started making sense to me that never made sense before. I'd be around horses, I'd put my hand on them, and then they'd literally move their body into the place where they wanted my hand to be. And even though I hadn't, studied energy healing yet, even though I hadn't taken courses in it, I was like, something really interesting is taking place here. These animals know, and they can feel things that I was, when I grew up, I was taught horses are big animals, they're stupid, and you better be careful because they're going to try to hurt you. That's literally what I was taught as a kid. And then starting to experience things where these horses had no halters on. I had no control over what they were going to do. And then connecting with them in this really soft, almost like a meditative-like state with my eyes open, and connecting at that chi level where we could both feel and sense each other's energy. It just opened my eyes to a whole nother reality that actually exists. Like, when I first started my animal communication work, people were like, okay, that's a little woo-woo, it's weird. But after, a couple thousand times of doing this and being able to help animals when no one else could help them, not even the veterinarians, you kind of start to realize, wow, there really is more to this. And, energy is not some weird thing. It's something we all exist in. And so that really became kind of like the foundation of my connection and my relationship with horses. And then the horses literally started training me. How do I bring people into this energy field, right? And how do I help people understand their horses better?
And I'm sorry, because I think I interrupted you because you were telling us about Patty, the paint mare, and that, you thought something was wrong. So was something wrong with her? Because you were quite young at that stage.
I was. And I didn't feel comfortable at 11 or 12 years old to say, hey, I know something's wrong, right? Because our stable master at the time was this big, very large Dutch man named Andre. Yeah. And Andre had a little bit more of a cowboy perspective, about horses. But when he came up to the barn that morning, I said, Andre, I was like, I don't know, if I'm right or not, but I said, I think Patty doesn't feel well. And he goes, well, why do you say that? And I was like, I don't know. It's just a feeling. He goes, all right, well, I'll check. And that was really it. So I never knew if she did or she didn't. But years later, I landed up in New York City with another horse named Paddington. And Paddington lived literally in a 5-story townhouse. This is how they ran the barn and the stable. It was so really not conducive for horses. And I remember being at a therapeutic riding session with him. I saw him. I said to the people, I said, he just doesn't feel well. Can I take him outside? And we stood outside for a while. And it was a slow drizzle. It was a fall day. And I just wished that I could take Paddington and ride him away, because I knew that this life of living in a building, literally like in a 5-story building, was not healthy. And with him, I called the next day to check on him. I had found out he colicked and he passed away. And then 2 years later, that's when I started actually studying and training in animal communication.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like they do know. They know what's wrong with them. Yeah. They know they're very intelligent. They're way, way more intelligent than we give them credit for.
Sure. I can certainly agree with you there. Now, Alecia, if someone wanted to do the type of work that you do, is it a gift? Is it something that can be learned?
It's definitely something that can be learned. I really believe over the last 24 years of working with animal communication and energy healing and body work, I really have seen, I didn't totally understand my path as I was walking it. I was sort of led to the next piece and then the next piece. And before I knew it, I was like, wow, this is actually like a career, knowing how to help animals. So the first thing that I would recommend for people is just start with an animal communication class. Just start with learning what telepathy is. Learning, like, do you land up hearing your horse? Do you land up seeing things about your horse? Do you land up just generally having a sense or feeling and a knowing of what's going on with your horse? That's what basic animal communication will teach you. And I think that is, a great way to get started if you're looking at the animal communication track. If you're looking at, I actually really enjoy body work, then start with just a basic massage course, or an energy healing course. My career was built, like I said, I didn't expect that I was going to learn the things I was going to learn at 6 years old. I wanted to be a veterinarian.
Okay.
But when math and science came in, I realized there's no way I will ever get accepted to a veterinary school. Mm-hmm. So I gave up that dream. But years later, when I started practicing Qigong and started realizing, whoa, there really is something to this animal communication piece. And I can utilize that to actually help horses heal, especially if it's a case where the veterinarians they can't find the diagnosis, right?
Yes.
So they're using all their tests to find it. But then when I was able to ask the horse and say, well, what's your perspective? And the horse said, well, it's not that, it's this. Then all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh. Okay, so maybe I can help them heal. It just might not be in the way that I thought traditionally thinking that I would be able to help.
Okay.
And then when the energy work came in and then the distance energy work came in, all of a sudden it was like, wow, I actually really can realize my dream of assisting them. It just was this natural progression because I was just sort of following where I was being led. What was the next piece? Mm-hmm. Qigong was the first piece. Then the animal communication came in. Then the hands-on healing came in. Then I learned about flower essences, like homeopathy. Then I started learning about teeth. And I started learning about food. So it's really been a progression of studying all these aspects, but really honing my gift. And I would say everybody has it. Everybody is born telepathic.
Okay.
We're just not educated that way, right?
Yep.
Like most, like when little kids say, oh, it's my imaginary friend. Well, they could it might not be an imaginary friend. They could literally be talking with an energy being. And we tend to discourage that, or how gifted little kids are when they're like, well, my horse feels this, because they're already so plugged in on that level. They're just going right from their gut intuition. And then we teach them to close that down.
Okay.
So that's why I say we are all born with it. Yes. Yep. And it's learnable.
Just thinking about a couple of case studies, people that you've helped, because if people can communicate with their horse better, then that's going to improve the relationship between them and their horse. Have you got a couple that you'd like to tell us about?
Absolutely. The most fascinating one was I had been, last November, I was at a wolf sanctuary. Actually, before that, in May, I was in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I was working with a woman who does equine leadership. And I took 2 days with her, and I worked with her horses, and loved her horses. They were great. About 6 months later, in November, I was in a different place in New Mexico and met this woman at a wolf sanctuary who had brought her cat with her. They were driving around in an RV, and she was telling me their cat was sick, and I said, well, I think I'm supposed to help you. So worked with them that night. The cat was better by the next day, and they said, oh my gosh, it's right around Thanksgiving. What are you doing for Thanksgiving? You must come out to Santa Fe and visit us. We live right near Santa Fe.
Yep.
Well, it turns out they lived 1 mile exactly up the hill from these horses that I had met in May.
Yes.
So I went out to visit them, and when I was driving up on a Friday night, one of the horses named Blue was standing at the edge of the pasture. And I went over, I said hi to her. It was evening. My headlights, they were just, the one thing that kept coming to me was, why do you keep showing me your eyes? Why do you keep showing me your eyes? I contacted her mom, and 3 days later, I got an email back from her. She said, you don't know, do you? And I said, no, what happened? She said, Blue went blind, and we have no idea what happened.
Okay.
And I thought, all of this has to be too weird, right? Because I'm only a mile away. And so I said, okay, I'll come down and communicate with her. So Blue just kept telling me. Now, Blue had lost all proprioception in her feet. Mm-hmm. So I knew that something more was wrong, because even if a horse goes blind, I've met blind horses that can see better than some sighted horses. So they will still have proprioception in their feet. But Blue didn't have that. And I was like, something's really not right. So I asked her what was wrong. And she said, it's not my eyes. It's not my eyes. She said, Alecia, I can see. But the problem is I have a pressure in my head, and the pressure is creating, pressure on my optical nerves. And that's what's cutting off the blood flow to my eyes. I was like, okay. I told her people, I said, your horse, it's not her eyes. She does not have a disease. She does not have anything. And she's telling me she's going to see again. And the one person that I knew to call is my equine dentist, because he's brilliant. And I called him and I said, you have to come up here. And he wanted somebody else to come. And I said, no, you have to come. He came. The first adjustment he did, she got all of her proprioception back. And she was able to see I checked in with her. She said, I have about 30% of my sight back.
Wow.
I said, okay, this is really, really, really good. And then he more adjustments on her mouth. Mm-hmm. And he also did some blood flow releases in her head. And Blue is fully sighted. And she is the first veterinary case of a blind horse seeing again, because the veterinary medicine could not figure out what was wrong with her. And so being able to use animal communication and hear her and then know what she needed is the first time in veterinary history that a blind horse has become sighted.
There's so much that we don't know, isn't there? We just don't know. Yeah.
I know. Well, that's why I swear, Glenys, that is why I feel so lucky and honored to be able to hear these beings, because there are so many, I hate to say it, but there are so many misdiagnoses of things because of the limited amount we know. And it's been fascinating listening to and hearing the horses, because that's where I came to that quote, if you want to know what's going on, ask your horse, right? And most people, I can't ask my horse. I have to ask the veterinarian. I have to ask this one. I have to ask this. But I'm like, your horse is brilliant. Work with an animal communicator. Like, your horse really can tell you exactly what's going on from their perspective.
If you're an equestrian coach or a horse riding instructor, or even if you aspire to be one, have a look at the free video series for horse riding instructors on the Horse Chats website. Go there now, have a look, horsechats.com. It's certainly a fascinating subject that as we learn more about horses, as we learn more about ourselves, I think there's a bit of an open pathway there. Yeah, and I think that's it. I think if you've got an open mind and you say, I just want to learn more, you can be open to experiences. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that available on the internet anywhere? Has it been, recorded, anything like that? Like, I would have thought you'd have vets all over you, like in the veterinary journal or something. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, veterinary, it's very interesting at times. You know what I mean? Because they'll go, well, it was a fluke. It was, that just doesn't happen. I'm like,
well, yeah, I mean, I think for any sort of research, really, it's how many cases. And I think as we know more, there'll be more cases.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
Okay. What about relationships with people? Can you think of a case study where it's helped relationships with people and their horse, between a person and their horse? Person and their horse, they may not be communicating, may not be going very well, and a little bit of work with you, and then all of a sudden the partnership starts to work.
Yes. So one of the most interesting things that I kind of discovered that the horses shared with me was, they said, do you know that a very large percentage of people that ride horses are actually scared of them? And I said, what? And they said, yeah, well, the majority of people that work with us actually are afraid. Like, they're afraid we're going to do something wrong. They're afraid we're going to step on them. They're afraid we're going to take off with them. And so, I said, wow, I honestly, I really didn't realize that before. So I said, well, what's the biggest thing that I can do to help you guys? What's the biggest thing that I can help people understand about you? And they said the first thing is, regardless of our size, understand that actually we're really gentle beings. Like, we're not there to cause harm. And if you can help people first come to a horse from a relationship perspective, and think about the way horses really would greet each other first, which would be with breath, right? They'd be sniffing noses and they'd be sharing breath. Mm-hmm. They said, if you can just teach people to breathe in a more relaxed way, then coming to us, they'd actually see what's actually happening between us, not the fears that they're projecting, that they don't even realize they're projecting, upon us, that can create a struggle. Mm-hmm. And that was mind-blowing to me, Yep. That was mind-blowing. And it was, even people that ride really well. I have a girlfriend who I worked with who, it's just, there was not the ease that needed to flow between her and her horse. And I don't want to give anybody a mistake. I am not a horse trainer, but I understand the energy that goes back and forth in the relationship. So I can help with that finer point of the beginning foundation. Like, even if you're an expert rider, but you're not breathing properly, the horse is going to go on alert. And so we spent a couple of sessions just breathing, and the level and the quality of what shifted in her riding. Because I wasn't teaching her aspects or fine points of riding. I was teaching her aspects and fine points of relationship. And by the third session, she was weeping. Because she said, I've been around horses all my life, and I have never realized that it was possible to feel this much peace and this much connection with a horse when I wasn't trying to figure out how to get the horse into a collected space or move them or, adjust them. She said, I never realized that it came from within me first. Yeah. And that was just, to me, it was like the heavens opened up. I was like, wow. Mm-hmm. Even if one person experiences that was so touching to me. So for me, like I said, I'm not a technical rider, but I can fix anybody's riding because I can tap into the subtle nuances of where the relationship is off.
Yep.
And it can help bring greater flow and harmony.
Okay. So just thinking about one sort of message to go to people, a tip for them, that would be then to breathe. That's sort of the main thing that people need to take away, is to breathe.
Yeah. Because I really, everything to me, before you even get on a horse, it's the first thing is start a relationship through your breath.
Yep.
And so this way you're actually connecting with the actual essence of your horse. And I'm always, my philosophy really is it's relationship before riding. There's a lot of people that know how to ride well, but I don't find that necessarily means that they have a spectacular relationship. Mm-hmm. And I've, over the years, I've really come to see riding as a spiritual journey, because you're learning as much. Well, you have the opportunity to learn as much, if not more, from your horse than what you think you're teaching your horse. There are so many incredible things that I've watched horses teach their humans. My jaw drops. I was like, wow, they really are like pretty big therapists.
Yeah. Yep. Alecia, what are your plans for the future? Next 12 months or so, what have you got going on?
Continuing working with the soul relationship between horses and humans. Really, what are the horses actually teaching their people? So for the people that they're good riders, or they just love their horses and they just want to have a closer relationship and a deeper bond. My soul with horses is teaching people the art of animal communication. It teaches them the energy work and the foundation to build a really healthy relationship with your horse. And it also helps people really discover, wow, this is a pretty big teacher in my life. I really kind of look at the horses as like furry gurus.
Yep.
I feel like they're, in so many ways, they're already enlightened masters. And they're like, could you just translate information for us so we can help our people?
If people would like to contact you to find out a bit more, what's the best way?
Easiest way is via my website, which is www.animalhealer.com. And all my contact info is right on there, and I'd be happy to serve you and your horse.
Perfect. All right. And those details will be, of course, at the bottom of your page, which is horsechats.com/Alecia Evans, or search for Alecia or search for Evans. So, Alecia, this has been fascinating. Fascinating talking to you, hearing about the blind horse being able to see again. I think that's a story that it's a shame it's not better recorded, but in time to come, people look back. If, there's a few more cases like that, then that'll be good. And, look forward to having you back again sometime in the future.
I would love that. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for inviting me and all that you do for the horses.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Alecia. Yeah, looking forward to talking to you again. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
If you've enjoyed this chat, then please comment, rate and subscribe. If you'd like any changes or recommendations for guests, then please contact us through horsechats.com. And while you're online, have a look at the government-accredited courses at internationalhorsecollege.com. Registered Training Organisation 31352.
Remember that our comments and instructions are general in nature and do not take into consideration your individual horses or your individual ability and circumstances. If you enjoyed this podcast, then please leave your comment below.